Folks, it's 12 o'clock. We're going to get the study session started. Welcome all in attendance. President Hudson.
I'll know by Monday.
Thank you very much. I have items 9 through 18. Start with item number 9. Any questions? Number 9, okay. Chief, and recognize this is for an application for a grant. So,
right.
Yep.
Hey, Chief.
Good afternoon. We're just applying for a grant through FEMA. This boat will be capable of enhanced rescue and firefighting capabilities in the Inner Harbor. We have a 24-year-old boat right now that we were given used, so we're just looking to upgrade if we can get this grant, and we'd only have to match 25%, which would be totaled at $50,000.
So we have a boat now. It's used or not used?
It's used. It's ready to be used, but there's no fire pump on there. So if we keep developing like the Inner Harbor or areas where we have railroads and trains going through the city right on by the Destiny USA, the only place to get to some of these areas is through a boat. There's no fire pump on the boat we have, so this would be advantageous to have in the harbor once we really start developing, and we can actually flow water from the water in the harbor to the buildings if we needed to, besides our fire apparatus.
So are there certain staff members that are trained to use it? How does it work now?
Our Station 2 over that's located on the near the Inner Harbor over on Lodi Street, they're trained.
Okay.
We have one company dedicated to that boat.
So, but my concern is just if we were to get this, so staffing wise, would it be how would that work?
Right now we staff it as needed. If there's a large event, we'll pre-plan and make sure we have people over there. It's just like any event that happens downtown. If there's an event going on in the Inner Harbor where we think we need the boat, we'll staff as needed to try to protect the public if they're down there doing an event.
So is it primarily for watercraft, or is it for land specific type use?
This boat, if we get it, will be used for both.
Okay.
Right now, if there's somebody that falls into the water, we'd get our boat and we'd come in, we'd do rescue operations off of our boat inside the water. This new boat, if we're able to get it, the buildings that are on the land, we could come in with our boat in the water and use the water that's in the harbor and flow water onto the fire if a building's on fire on the land. So there'll be a pump with nozzles on the boat that will actually be used for fire extinguishment. So right now we don't have that capability.
Are there other entities that do this for like Onondaga Lake that could possibly help with Inner Harbor?
I'm not positive. I believe Liverpool had a boat that they were selling. We looked at it and we never came to the point where we were going to buy it or looking at buying it.
And then what would be like the maintenance costs, or a ballpark? Obviously, wouldn't know that.
I could get back to you with that. I don't have that dollar figure right offhand, but our maintenance division would provide the maintenance for it. Okay. We just need to buy parts and upgrade as needed. But if that area gets developed like the plans are, yeah, I believe that it would be advantageous to have something like this in our disposal.
But is it required? Like, so obviously we looked at the plans and it was okay without the boat, right? Like, so if without it, we would still be able to serve those.
Yep, we'd be able to do the best we can with the equipment that we have. This is just another tool that we would have at our disposal that would significantly help our cause in putting a fire out. Or the boat that we have not isn't made for rescues. It's like a fishing boat. We were given that by the police department. I'm not sure how many years ago, but it's not a boat that is used to rescue people out of the water with. So this new boat would be able to do fire capabilities, and it would be better for us to rescue people out of the water.
Okay.
Can I actually speak on that? Because I happened to be in Inner Harbor one night, and I will echo what the chief is saying, because I watched it, and they actually were trying to get somebody out of there in the harbor, and I think she got pushed in. But anyway, they were trying to use the ladders to get down to her. They finally did get her, but the dive team came in. So I do agree with the boat, because then they'll be able to get to that person quicker, because I actually did see them in action last year when somebody fell into the harbor.
So the boat we have now is like a fishing boat. It's not really a rescue boat. So, but our firefighters are trained to overcome what we have to use it whenever it's needed. If we need it, we'll get into the water as best as we can. But this grant would be great if we can get this boat. It would help our city out tremendously. So
Where would it be docked?
right now, we've had conversations about figuring out a way to get it docked in the inner harbor. Right now, the boat is out in Onondaga Lake Park. So, because there was no area for it to be docked at this point, but I've already had discussions with the mayor about trying to figure out a way to have it located right there in the inner harbor. So.
Okay.
Just spoke with the mayor to make sure that we create a designated spot for this piece of equipment, a red line stripe space that no one else could occupy.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions on
Yeah,
it?
just one. Hey, look, I'm on board and in support of getting this, especially since it's funded through a grant.
Yes.
But are we going to keep that the boat that we're currently using? Are we going to keep that and try and maintain it, or is that something that we're going to?
We probably will not keep that if
okay.
we get this.
I just wanted to make sure because I would assume umpteen years ago it's probably needs maintenance.
Yes, we're probably not going to keep it.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, number 10.
Number 10 is our request to appropriate funds for our capital account for vehicles. We're looking to replace some of our vehicles in our fleet. Does anybody have any questions with that?
You can combine that with number 11.
Number 11 is to appropriate funds for our facilities. That's to maintain our facilities throughout the year, our fire stations, and also we're planning on buying an emergency generator for Fire Station 9 in the event of a power outage. Every station has a backup emergency generator, so that's what these funds would be appropriated towards.
Okay,
I have one question. Chief Mines, when was the last time we purchased vehicles for the deputy chiefs and the district chiefs?
I believe last year they bought three chiefs vehicles for the deputies and one for the district chiefs. So 4 chief vehicles last year.
these vehicles get passed down, correct?
They get passed down, yes. And this was in the capital improvement plan. We're actually going to buy 7 Chevy SUVs. 3 of these are going to go to our mini vehicles, which are a bigger vehicle than these SUVs. So we're downsizing some of our vehicles, which is going to help with maintenance and fuel costs. And the other 4 will be for the chiefs who respond to the alarms and our incident commanders at fires and other alarms. And they also supervise the day-to-day fire companies.
Can I get a list of your vehicles?
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Chief Cecil, we have item 12. Any questions for the rescue mission 4 cameras? 13, Father Hayes. 14. 15. Okay. 16. 17. Tires and nothing. And 18. Okay. We're
Wow.
that was quick, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, already. Yeah. Those are my items. Councilor Bay.
Thank you. I have items 19 through 23. Is there someone here to speak on item 19?
Go right ahead. I wrote the letters. I don't just stand up.
Hi, I'm Mike Integlia. I'm the Executive Director of the Landmark Theater. We're seeking to apply for funds from the New York Main Street program for the Downtown Anchor project to replace our marquee with a replication of the original marquee from 1928.
I happen to like that marquee. I don't think there's any questions about that. No? Appreciate it.
I'd be
Thanks.
curious, what were the differences between the current marquee and the one from 1928?
The structure of the 1928 marquee is actually still underneath. It was a curved, like an arched front, and we essentially covered it with a box. Put the new lights behind there. Obviously, that one has been up for about 60 plus years. It's been subject to vehicle strikes, and it's beyond repair at this point. So it's either replace or leave it as is. So.
Great. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Item 20.
Good afternoon.
Lemoyne.
A couple of representatives from Lemoyne College, Steve Kulik.
Bill Brower, the Vice President for Communications and Advancement.
And Greg Lowe, Director of City Initiatives.
We have a number of issues.
They may be good.
Oh,
21.
Yeah, well, if you could give me a quick, short
I'll start very quickly.
snapshot. Thank you.
The city wants to proceed as applicant for a CFA application to Empire State Development for a neighborhood master planning initiative, partnering with Lemoyne College and Lemoyne in turn with the town of DeWitt.
There's no questions?
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just one quick one. I should have asked this earlier. So has the feasibility study been done? No. And so this is agreement, an application to do the feasibility
study, okay.
What area will it cover?
So Springfield Road and Salt Springs Road around the campus, the main roads surrounding the campus, and the neighborhoods surrounding the campus.
And the neighborhoods surrounding those two roads?
Correct.
Great. All right. No more questions? All right, I'll call that ready. 21, is it?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Item 21.
Afternoon, counselors. This item is to apply for and contract with the Startup in Residence program, which is a program that works with local governments to match us up with different startup companies to work on specific challenges that we identify. Adria's been kind of heading up this project. She put together a one-pager that's coming around to you now, and she'll be back on Monday if you have further questions.
Yes.
Hi. Does this, sorry, you just handed me this, I haven't read it yet, maybe it says it here, but does this program research startup companies locally or just nationally, or?
Both, I would imagine. I haven't worked on this at all, so I'm not totally sure, but I think both.
Okay.
Got a $10,000 budget.
Any further questions?
I gotta read it. I'm sorry I didn't have an opportunity to see the book before I got here.
So we'll just revisit it Monday. All right.
Thank you.
Looks interesting.
Item 22. How you doing, Owen?
I'm well, Counselor. Good afternoon, Counselors. This is a request much like the request for coordination with Lemoyne. This is a CFA grant application to New York State that the city and the county are partnering on, focused on the Inner Harbor area. And particularly in light of the ongoing development out there, specifically at the Inner Harbor, the Creek Walk, the Loop the Lake Trail, obviously existing facilities like the stadium, the mall, the Roth Steel site. There's a lot of potential development, either ongoing or potential. And so this is a planning grant looking at kind of coordinating the connectivity between all of them as they move forward. So that's the focus of the grant. I don't expect this to be the full $275,000. I think it's probably closer to 200. And the match is going to be provided by both city and county staff.
And it's man hours and our staff hours, not, I mean, obviously it's a dollar amount because your time is money, but
that is correct,
no
Counselor.
additional funds other than time.
Yeah,
okay.
That's correct.
Can I ask a quick question on that, Owen?
Yes.
Who owns the boathouse?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Because if we're going to be developing and that boathouse is still sitting there, why can't we develop that boathouse into a restaurant or something in that area?
That boathouse, Cora owns that boathouse.
The right on the inner, right in the Inner Harbor.
Right there.
I think Cora owns that boathouse.
I apologize. I don't know. I don't know if anybody else in the. Yeah, we can confirm that. But I think that's the idea, is to look at all of these assets that have been progressing. And just kind of build some greater connectivity physically and otherwise between them. And we feel this is a great opportunity to partner with the county on this. And so kind of a real coordinated effort out in the lakefront area.
What is the split city county? When you said that the match will be split between the city and the county, is it 50-50 or?
We haven't confirmed that, but I imagine it would be 50-50.
assumption,
Yeah,
50-50.
that's correct.
If you're talking about the building that's at the Inner Harbor right now, the old building that they moved, that's owned by the developers of the Inner Harbor Core.
Of course it is. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Call the item ready. Item number 23 is memorializing legislation to the governor and the state legislature. What it is a request to the governor and the legislature to fund the New York State Department of Health to conduct a study to determine if, in fact, vaccines provided to women during pregnancy causes brain damage to unborn children. So I passed out the legislation to my colleagues for you to peruse, take some time to understand, and then we can have further discussion come either during the week or come to our next study session. I know the holiday was a big part of why we just got it today. But again, it's a request to the state to fund the research to be conducted by the New York State Department of Health to determine, in fact, if what other medical professionals are saying is true. Ultimately, at one point, medical professionals or doctors told women or spoke against pregnant women receiving vaccinations, and all of a sudden, that practice has changed. But there is an argument by some medical professionals that the increase in children born with autism could be related to vaccinations during pregnancy. So we're just asking the state, or I'm hopefully in support of my colleague, with the support of my colleagues, is asking the state to qualify or discredit as much, and based on whatever the results they find, that they make a choice, even if that choice is to ban the offering of vaccinations to pregnant women. Any questions? All right, then we're going to move along. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Counselor.
Yeah, I'll take for Counselor Rudd.
Counselor Rudd for Counselor Driscoll is going to do Counselor Rudd's.
All right, number 24, Dave.
MPH.
Good afternoon again, councilors. I'm David Clifford, Commissioner of Assessment. This is a settlement of a certiorari proceeding, and I assume you'd want to go into executive session on Monday to receive advice from counsel regarding this court settlement.
Yep.
Are these two related, the two properties?
There's a building and parking lots, so.
Okay, so they're next to each other?
Yeah, they're all owned by the same entity.
Same people, okay. Okay.
All three of them are owned by the same person?
Correct.
All right, is number 25 with you? Who's number 25? Yeah.
Good afternoon, I'm Janet Burke, the Director of Research. We are wanting to apply for a planning study to perhaps create a centralized payment location on the first floor of City Hall so that everyone that comes to pay anything can go to the same place.
Are we also going to check into doing something with the state relative to the finance charges for credit cards?
I'm not sure that's part of this plan, but we can certainly take a look at that.
Thanks. We'll send something to you on that, Janice. Okay.
So how many different services would be consolidated?
We decided there were 6. I believe there are potentially 6 with permits, the Municipal Violations Bureau, parking, taxes, water.
So there's be one municipal place to pay your bills?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Great. Just echo Councilor Thompson on the cards. 26, Dave?
Good afternoon, councilors. Happy 4th, belated.
Yeah.
Not to step on Janet's toes, but it's the credit card processors that charge a fee.
Yeah, no, we've had some discussion about sending something to the state to see if we can work with that, but yeah.
Hope it works. Item 26, I'm asking for my annual release of capital funds. And that's used to fund our everything from PC purchases to our network infrastructure, our servers, our backups, the whole shooting match. Any questions?
What would you say the bulk of it is, with the most expenses?
Our network infrastructure and our servers. PCs are really commodities now. We buy them for $450, $500 a piece, keep them for 4 or 5 years and replace them. So we're on kind of a regular schedule with that. But it's more the big purchases that we make behind the scenes that keeps everything running.
Okay.
It's probably 60% of it. Okay?
Yep.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right. Mary, want to say something?
Number 27 is a authorization to enter into a settlement agreement with Verizon. Back in late 2016, the council authorized a contract with Computel to review all the gross receipts tax from vendors who pay the city, and Verizon was found to be one that shorted the city by $30,000. So they are requiring this settlement agreement before they will pay us.
So that was the total. We didn't
That was the total, and
compromise
Computel is 40% commission to them, so we'll net about $18,000.
Okay. Everybody feel good? Mr. Clifford, back again for number 28.
Yes, this is actually just amending a previous authorization to hire an appraiser. There was an associated parking lot that we had left off of the request to council. Plus we changed their hourly rate from $250 to $300 for court testimony and trial prep.
Okay.
Number 29 is correction of some exemptions we had on the roll. 329 West Kirkpatrick, an exemption was approved where the property did not qualify, so we'd like to correct that. 919 East Genesee Street, the exemption was calculated improperly, and we'd like to correct that. Same with 110 Schuyler Street. Any questions?
What is the property at Genesee and Krause? Is it
That's the new student housing
That's the new
project.
student housing, correct? Yes.
Oh, so what's? Yeah, can you go a little further into that, Mr. Clifford? So it's
sure. The exemption that's on the existing 18-19 roll, the one that's the new tax bills coming out are based upon, was calculated with the wrong base, is all. The exempt amount changes. The total assessment doesn't change, but the exempt amount changes as a result.
Oh, so the original assessment of the building before the new development.
Yeah, it was confusing. The reason this occurred was that they did a re-subdivision in the same year. So the re-subdivision occurred, the buildings were taken off because they were demolished, but the building assessment should have still been on there because it's a conversion from commercial to mixed use for this exemption. So because the resub happened first, it took the buildings off, and they started from that assessment instead of the total assessment that was there before.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Driscoll. Before we
I
go
think we
to,
still have one more.
oh,
We do.
okay.
Number 30. Is that Mr. Barry?
Yes, good afternoon. Joe Barry, First Assistant Corporation Counsel. This would be an annual waiver request so that the law department could contract with various process servers during the year to carry out our legal actions.
I'm going to ask the question that I asked earlier. So I know a lot of the things that we do without competitive bid is for proprietary reasons. So why are we using without competitive bid so much for different services?
Well, in this type of service, it's very important to have someone who's reliable and someone we've worked with in the past. There's not a lot of, to my knowledge, a lot of these professionals out there, and we use them primarily for code enforcement purposes, and we have to track down out-of-town LLCs to the Secretary of State's office. So it's been our desire in the past to really pick those persons or firms that we've felt comfortable with, that have provided good service in the past.
And I appreciate that, but I mean, if it's the same firms that you feel comfortable with, why couldn't we RFP it to those firms?
Well, I would certainly consider mentioning that next year to the Corporation Council. I think this process is somewhat new to us because of the increase in volume. It's reached a certain cost level where we need to obtain a waiver to go through the county purchasing process in order to issue POs. We do this on a case-by-case basis, so it's kind of as needed. We don't know if we'll actually reach these amounts. It just depends how many legal actions take place during the year. So for this fiscal year, we had to kind of put this together for the first time. But for the next fiscal year, I would certainly consider working on an RFP with the Corporation Council.
And I appreciate that, because I think a lot of people get cut out when there's no RFPs put in, and it's just the waiver. It cuts a lot of folks out, and I'm just concerned about that.
Well, understood, and if we can go ahead with the way it is for this year, we could certainly look at the RFP for the next fiscal year.
Just want to add something. 3 years ago, I believe we did issue bids for this, and the individuals that were hired were giving process servers, were delivering summonses to incorrect addresses. The issue with the Albany Secretary of State filings on a timely basis had issues with it. So there were a number of problems that we were seeing. So when this issue came up again, we decided to go for a waiver with those individuals we know that we relied on and have done good service for the city in the past.
And again, I hear everything you're saying, but I see two individuals here, so they could bid on it more or less, more so than just without the waiver.
Well, I think one of them is it's under $20,000, so we can get quotes, and it's up to the department head also.
And I understand everything you're saying, but I do think that it's a disadvantage because we're not broadly RFPing this, so, okay.
Thank you, Councilor Driscoll. Before we go to Councilor Carney and Parks, I'd like to bring up the Deputy Mayor, Sharon Owens, to introduce the new commissioner.
You just did it. No, it's my pleasure, Council and everyone here, to be able to present to you our new Commissioner of Parks and Rec, Julie LaFave. She has been amazing since being with us since January. We're pleased for her to become our new commissioner. And I'd also like to introduce to you our new Deputy Commissioner, Jimmy Oliver, who comes with extensive recreation experience. We are looking forward to moving forward with our Parks Department and strategically aligning ourselves up. Our parks are amazing assets to the city, and we're going to continue to help them grow. Thank you.
With that, Councilor Carney.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. I've got items 31 through 36. So.
Good afternoon. Number 31 is to accept a donation for a member of one of our senior centers who passed away, so this is a donation in her honor. Any questions on that one? No. 32 and 33, I've asked our city arborist to come up and present on that one.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. 32 and 33 are items to grant us permission to apply for 2 grants. One to prune trees and one to continue our re-inventory of city street trees.
With 32, that 66,000, is that solely for actually hiring and paying people out of, employing them out of that Onondaga Earth Corps, and that they're going to be paid out of that, or is, and if so, how many people are actually hired and compensated through that? Or is it for
that
equipment?
is they're getting paid a unit cost per tree, and they're crews of 5 to 6 people, working in groups of 2, pruning a certain number of trees every day. It's high volume, and it takes time to train people, so you want the same people doing the same job over and over to get good at it.
But the payment is by tree?
Well, that's what the Corps, I mean, they have their rate. That's an administrative thing, how much they pay people, and they do that following New York State labor laws. But that's how we're paying them through the grant.
I like it.
Unit cost per tree.
Okay.
Yep.
Maybe we should adopt that citywide. Everyone gets paid their workload.
I think there are a number of departments that we wouldn't be able to afford then.
Any other questions for me?
I don't think so. That was my only
Okay,
question.
thank you.
Thank you.
Item 34 is related to our CFA grant. This is to develop a study for a future, hopefully, grant to address the landscape, the exterior of the Thorndon Park Amphitheater. 35 and 36 are dealing with part of the funds needed to hopefully address the Hiawatha Lake Wall Improvement Project.
And this is, I think this is what we had discussed during the budget hearings, that is this the amount that we need to actually fully address all the issues in the
This
lake
is a
wall?
portion of the funds that are needed, but we have identified the areas that we want to pull those funding from, and if all go through, then we will have the full amount to do it in one phase.
Okay, and refresh my memory, roughly what's that total going to be to
About 1.4.
1.4, okay.
Is there funding that was left over from last year to?
We are using that as well. We have $228,000 that was previously allocated for this project that will also be included in the 1.4. Any other questions?
Yep, thank you. There's my items, they're all ready.
Okay, thank you. I'll handle Councilor Ryan's. He has 37 through 47. Number 37 and 38 and 39, we're going to hold for a.
I was all ready.
You're you can come back at another day.
Now you're gonna hold it.
Yeah, for a we're gonna Councilor Rudd and myself will put together a committee meeting for everybody.
32 million, I think it warrants a committee meeting.
Yeah.
And
Threshold.
No, it's a lot lower.
It's 31 million.
to be announced soon.
$25, that's what warrants a committee meeting.
Number 40. Hi, Commissioner.
Good afternoon, councilors. 40 is to appropriate funds to be used on our sewer reconstruction capital improvement program. This will allow us to use the funds on an emergency basis to reconstruct and replace sewer lines and manholes. We use these funds to subcontract out large sewer projects. Any questions?
So we don't know, we don't know where it's being designated.
No.
It's kind of as it goes.
As it goes.
We see problems, okay.
Have you identified some projects already that need work done immediately?
Euclid and Midland.
And is there going to be some kind of is this for a study to see where?
No, this is to help us reline the manholes and the sewer lines.
And is there any historical amount that we've spent on that in the past, or is this a new allocation?
This is definitely a new allocation, but Euclid and Midland, we don't know. We didn't have numbers yet, so.
I'm just wondering where you get the 600,000 number. Is that just a guess, or is it?
No, it's an educated guess. I mean, that's an average of what we typically use
in a year or so.
So that's historically what we've
Yeah.
spent. So we've based this on.
Sometimes we don't spend it all, and it usually, I believe it rolls over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Like I said, this year we're going to be using mostly all of it because of the Euclid and Midland projects that we're using.
Can,
To the,
go ahead.
so was there any left over last year?
Yes.
How much?
I think about 400,000.
Wow.
I couldn't tell you, but I think it's about 400,000.
Okay.
But
That's
can
just
I ask a question? When it says sewer lines and manholes, I know that we had started at some point. Are we still using the same manholes that we use, the ones that when it bubbles up the water, that they fly open? Or are we looking to change the manholes designs?
I'm confused on the question that you're asking me. I'm sorry.
Huh?
I'm confused.
Okay, you wasn't here for that, so we'll talk offline unless Mary knows.
Yeah, I mean,
Good afternoon, councilors. Mary Robison, city engineer. For some of the sewers that the manholes were more likely to surge, I believe that the city and the county purchased some of these special manhole covers. So a few of the manhole.
Some of them, right? Because
Right.
do we have a total number of manholes that we have throughout the city?
Thousands.
And I know, and that's my point, because I'm curious to know how many of those manholes have we actually converted over so that they don't fly open when there's a surge.
We can find that out. But I just did see some literature. Those manholes were really designed, the ones that we purchased were really designed for if they were to explode. So there wasn't really a manhole available to address the situation where the sewer surcharges. But I just saw some literature online where a local manufacturer has produced a manhole to address our particular situation. So I think we're going to investigate that further.
Okay.
And
And could you keep me
that-
posted on that? That's my DPW chair hat. But
That should be more cost effective than the explosion proof manhole cover, I hope. I don't know, I haven't investigated it yet.
okay, thank you.
Just for information's sake, for those who weren't around, very warranted question for based on the flood we had on Fayette, and a gentleman was sucked into the manhole and lost his life.
didn't
So
wanna
that's
tell him all
the relevance of. Well, there's a lot of people here who didn't know, but that's the relevance of the question.
Thank you. 42,
41.
41?
41 is to appropriate funds for us to purchase sewer equipment and vehicles.
And the vehicle, that's, okay.
Any questions?
42.
Good afternoon. Item 42 is a TIP project where we're requesting authorization for an agreement with Barton and LaJudas for downtown mill and pave. The streets are listed.
Marcia Shelley?
Actually, it is 100% reimbursable, 80% federal, and 20% New York State. They picked a few projects that would be 100% reimbursable, and we are the recipient of 2 of them. So this agreement is for the preliminary engineering phase, $165,000.
43.
I have a question
Oh,
on 42.
sorry.
What would be the time frame? Like, do you know when this would take place?
We're just initiating the project now, so it's probably going to be approximately 2021.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, 43.
43 is authorization of an agreement with Mobile ID for franchise agreement to install small cell facilities on new poles and on existing poles within the city right-of-way. In your packet, you got a black and white submittal, which is really hard to see, so I emailed you a color copy of the application. their first phase is 5 poles, 2 new poles and 3 existing poles. And we're still reviewing those locations. This is the first franchise agreement that's being authorized under our General Ordinance number 23 of 2017.
Do we have a dollar amount?
It's a citywide franchise agreement. It's not for each permit. They'll be charged per pole depending upon whether it's a new pole or an existing pole per that ordinance. There's an annual fee. And that would go with the permit.
But I don't see it in here.
I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to read through this yet. I'm sure it's in here. But is there any limit to the height that they're allowed to make these poles?
The ordinance is not to exceed 50 feet. And then
what's a typical pole?
probably approximately 30 feet.
So they can go 20 feet higher.
30 to 40 feet.
And are they going to be leasing their space to other providers?
Sure.
Oh.
This is Mr. Fitzsimmons from Mobile 80. Mr. Fitzsimmons from Mobile 80.
Mobility, sorry, yeah, mobility. To answer your question, no, we won't be leasing out space on the poles to other parties, simply because it's not a typical cellular telephone site. It's more or less a telephone pole. And you put typically a 30.7 inch high by 4.7 inch diameter antenna on the top of the pole. And other carriers are not going to want to do that. They're going to want to go on another pole somewhere else, or they might want to go on a rooftop somewhere, but it'll generally be just one carrier per pole.
And is mobility the carrier?
Right.
No.
I wanted to know.
We provide infrastructure solutions to companies. So they hire us, we go out, we do all the work, get all the contracts in place. We can own the equipment, and then they provide the service.
Okay, do we know who the provider is going to be?
Sprint,
This is for Sprint?
yes.
Once-
And the heights, the heights are, in my experience, doing this, heights go from 30 to 45 feet with telephone poles. It depends on the area.
And that's not going to be visually disruptive of the, or out of character for some of these neighborhoods to have a double-sized pole?
Well, our goal is to try and provide telephone poles that are similar in height to existing structures there. It will be less visually impactful because there will not be transformers on these poles like you see around your homes and other areas. It'll just be the 30.7 inch high antenna.
And the new poles that are going in will be wooden poles?
Yes.
So Mary, the city is going to look at each one of these and then give its authorization for them, correct?
Correct.
So that we'll know that if there's concerns in a neighborhood.
Yeah, if you look at the
in
application,
advance.
there's some handwriting underneath each picture, and that's kind of the status of our review at this point.
For these now.
For these now, correct, and that would continue with each permit under this agreement.
Okay, and my one question is, who gets charged for the moving the wires and everything over?
That would be,
That's part of a make-ready program that the telephone companies generally do. I've not worked with the Syracuse. I generally work with Pennsylvania Power and Light, and each company, the company that's coming in has to pay for people to move their lines if they have to move them at all.
If anything has to be moved, it doesn't come back
Correct.
to the city.
Right.
Correct. Okay.
Correct.
And Mary, he said Sprint. So if there's an opportunity, I would like to speak to Sprint again, because out of all the companies that sat here and talked about the small cells, and you might remember that, Steve, Sprint offered the city some community services stuff. So I really need to tag them down on that.
okay. Can you?
From mobility's perspective, that's not part of our
Right, that's why I
package
said
that
I
we
need
do.
to talk to Sprint.
And most of the carriers, they really don't do a lot of that anymore because it becomes an administrative
But I know
nightmare.
what they told me last year, so I'm not concerned about what they're doing anymore. I'm concerned about what they said.
We were told that we would
Yeah,
have
we
the
were.
opportunity to talk about
Yeah, we
decorative
were.
poles and other.
In the lower income areas, that's how that got started. So I don't care what they're not doing now. We're gonna talk about what they said they would do.
So we should probably, after this goes through, move to have maybe another committee meeting with them,
Yes.
or if you can't meet with them in private, so.
I just
however
have
you
one more
wanna do it.
question. So we're putting this infrastructure, or we're going ahead with Mobilite to allow Sprint this kind of coverage. And have we seen any kind of submissions for this kind of infrastructure in the city from any other providers that we've denied, or?
We approved one facility to an existing pole near Lemoyne. It was Verizon.
But nobody else has requested to put up any
No.
kind of infrastructure?
Not at this point.
There's different, my understanding is there's different fee structures if it's in a right of way or different, do we know where this is? Is this in?
These are all in the right of way.
They're all in the right of
And
way.
there's a different fee if it's a new pole or an attachment to an existing pole that's not owned by us versus a pole that is owned by us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. 44.
44 is permission for SU to install some concrete sidewalks along Walnut Park from Waverly Ave to Harrison Street. And then 2 diagonal concrete sidewalks between Marshall and Waverly and between Harrison and East Adams. There's no cost to the city. The diagonal sidewalks are like worn paths of where pedestrians are walking, so they're just going to turn them into concrete sidewalk. And they will maintain the sidewalks, and they will upgrade, I believe it's 12 ADA corners, and then we will take over the maintenance of the corners.
Cool.
Okay, 45.
Good afternoon, Councilors. Beth Smith from the Water Department. I have items 45, 46, and 47. 45 is accepting ownership of new infrastructure that Syracuse University is installing. They are renovating Archbold Gymnasium, so they're making improvements to the infrastructure. There will be no cost to the city for that. Item 46 is authorizing the 25th annual IMA agreement with the county, Onondaga County Water and Soil District. This contract allows for the protection and improvement of water quality within the watershed, working with the 44 active farmers within the watershed to maintain sediment control, erosion control. And item 47 is a waiver of competitive bidding with Upstate Freshwater Institute to do our weekly testing for our harmful algae bloom. If there are any questions.
It says to do it in the first week of July, that it's gonna start in the first week of July. Have they already done that yet, or?
I believe so. I believe so. I believe so.
Right.
Yes.
The testing.
I guess
yeah.
then my question, maybe it's not specifically directed to you, but if they've already done it, don't we already have to compensate them for their work? I mean, I don't understand why if it starts the first week of July, we're getting it the first week of July.
We
And
received.
I'm not really sure who to direct that question to.
Sure.
But
The Water Department received a letter from the Department of Health dated June 15th.
okay.
Requiring this short-term planning and long-term planning. And short-term planning was for weekly testing to be starting July 1st.
No, and I appreciate that. Look, I completely acknowledge that we should be regularly testing for algae blooms. It's become a big problem in our area, Finger Lakes. I guess my issue and my frustration is, and Councilor Boyle has mentioned it before too, that we get things after the work's already been done or already begun. Sure. And it's sort of, I mean, it doesn't really make any sense. I mean, what are we voting on here if we've already got to compensate these folks for their work? So.
That's a big conflict last year.
Yeah, so.
Counselor, your frustration is so noted.
Okay.
I'll find out what happened when we received the notification.
Okay.
And
All right.
to find out the timetable.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
And before you move off of DPW, Ms. Driscoll or the commissioner from DPW, I need to ask a question. Don't hide, Corey. Oh, Jeremy. Okay, cool. You're here. I didn't see you. You were hiding too. Question for you. I know we started, what was it, the university area of the road. When are we going to start the Midland Avenue recon?
I couldn't give you that answer, but I can check in with Kevin Hunter and get back to you.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Boyle.
Thank you. I have item number 48. Somebody here that can talk about it? Nobody's here? All right, contract with CPIHR for Affordable Care Act Consulting and Dashboard Access Services for a 1-year period. Total not to exceed $19,000 to be charged to account.
This is a personnel office item, but I can speak to it. I know about it.
Yeah, we've
for the
talked about this before.
Yeah,
It's
this
pretty
is
standard.
it's an annual contract, and they take care of all the ACA compliance for the city.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, we're ready. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Allen.
Thank you. I have items 49 through 75. Hi.
Good afternoon, Counselor Stephanie Pasquale, Department of Neighborhood and Business Development. Are there any questions or?
If you can you go over, I mean, I know we've sat in meetings on it, but can you just go through so everyone else can kind of know about 49 and 50?
Sure. Item 49 is to recertify a pool of qualified contractors for the blight busting program. These are small exterior repairs that are performed to eradicate exterior code violations in vacant properties. And this is funded by a grant we received a few years back from the New York State Attorney General's office, in which we still have resources available to continue that program.
Thank you.
This is excellent. I'm excited to see this happen. I'm wondering, how were these contractors selected?
There was a formal RFQ process that went out. It was in the paper, it was posted, and we sent it out to all MWBEs that are city certified or in the process of city certification.
And how many of these are city businesses, do you know?
I believe 2 are not, their offices are not in the city, and 4 are.
Great. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. 50.
Sure, and item 50 is the second 2-year round of the University Neighborhood Area Advisory Council, or UNSAC, service agreement. There was an RFP process in which applicants were requested to apply, and I believe you have in your packet the slate of proposed allocations for the agencies that were selected. And I'll just have you note this is for a 2-year period, so it started July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2020.
Okay, thank you. And 51, we'll have a committee meeting directly following study session. And 52.
Hello again. This is amending a lease agreement that the council approved last year. Some of the language in the ordinance was somewhat misleading as far as the use of the property.
So this is only for the portion of the barber shop and the hairstyling?
Correct. It's
okay.
not selling. We're leasing it, the space, as a barber shop.
Okay.
And I think the original ordinance said something about a community center or something.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. 53, 54, and 55 are all for special permits.
Good afternoon, councilors. 53 is a special permit on Erie Boulevard. There is a karaoke studio
existing, as well as another restaurant, and this is an additional restaurant that's going on site.
Is this one 53? Is it a local restaurant or is it a chain restaurant?
I believe it's a local Asian restaurant.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's over. Was it Mr. Hans there in the?
Han Garam is the owner. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They do the Korean karaoke in the back.
Yes.
Get your own private room. No, it's across the street.
This is going into the old Geico space.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Private room and do karaoke with your friends.
Do you?
Karaoke expert.
All right. Thank you.
If you're looking for Joe,
Right.
I need to know more about this.
I think we should all go.
All right. 54.
727 South Krause is a restaurant that's the old Hungry Chuck's. They demolished the building and they built a residential and retail, and now they want to establish a pizza shop, restaurant in the front facing Krause. So, and there's no parking on site, so they needed to waive that.
A couple of questions about this one. I believe they said originally that when they took all the places out, Funk and Waffles and Hungry Charlie's and all those spots, that they would be offered the ability to return to the space should they choose to. Do we know if that's been offered, or
I don't know.
you know about?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Just curious.
55.
Okay, and the last one, that's indoor amusement and recreation. There's two of these on site. This is the old Dietz building on Wilkinson. Historic building, tax credit project. They rehabbed the building with residential, retail, personal service, and now two indoor amusement and recreation. One is a yoga studio and the other is the Edge Fitness. And they do have a parking garage underneath and a parking lot, but parking was needed to be waived in this.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. Oh.
Back again. Item number 56, 57, and 58 are just corrections of prior ordinances where the legal description and certain things in the ordinance just needed to be corrected. Item 59 is a sale of the rear portion, or the front portion of a property that the city owns. This is in conjunction with the properties on either side. We received the back portions of two properties from the land bank, and we're selling this property to the land bank. And this is all to do with the creek walk.
So just the front, this is just for the front of 345, is what you're
Correct.
saying? Okay.
Correct.
Is there a map in here? No?
I think there should be. If there's not, I can provide you with one.
No, there's no map, it's just a
Yeah,
description.
I know last time we saw something, but it wasn't very
I can
clear.
provide you with a copy of the survey.
Engineering sent us something with the
Okay.
last one.
345.
And then, if there are no questions.
Wait, yes it is.
This was the last meeting we had. That
It's a, it's,
Yeah,
it's
but
a
that's
map.
not really a,
It's the same one.
yeah, a clear map. But, okay.
If you need a clearer,
I mean, I can just drive by, so I'm fine.
Yeah, I
but-
can do that too.
Yeah.
it's the part along the rear that we're going to be, that's along the creek that we're going to be using the creek walk, and the front part is going to be developed by the land bank.
Okay.
And it's land bank and city, right? It's not
Correct.
any person's
Right.
property we're taking.
Right,
Okay.
not in this instance.
Not in this instance, yeah.
Okay.
Item
thank
number
you.
60 is the sale of the property at 301 Hiawatha Boulevard West rear, which we had appraised, and we're selling it for the appraised value plus the cost of the appraisal.
Do you guys know yet what Destiny would use it for?
It's part of their parking lot.
Parking?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's where the Destiny Hotel is.
Okay.
And just a little section of the parking lot, it was a piece that was left over from years and years ago that the city owned.
Okay.
And they want to incorporate it all one parcel.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, and items 61 through 75.
Good afternoon, councilors. Items 61 through 75 are all for potential sale to the land bank. In the list that's coming around the table that you should have received last week, you'll see 5 rental occupied properties, 7 vacant land properties, and 3 vacant residential properties. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
I have a question. I just was looking at, did I interrupt someone? Okay. Sorry, I don't have my reading glasses on, so no, I don't know where it is. 67 on Clyde Ave. I was just looking at, their tax bill is pretty low. I mean, don't they have to be delinquent for more than like 3 years or something?
2 tax years, so we're past the amount of time.
Some of these are pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
A number of the low ones are vacant land that has like just passed the period where it becomes seizable.
Yeah, I had a question on
67.
120, or the burdock. Is that a structure? Is that a lot?
It is a structure. We maybe need to look into that one
Yeah,
further.
because I wouldn't think that 2 years on that.
Yeah, is this is, there's one here. It's only 1 year delinquent. It's rental occupied. One's,
So we may need to go back and verify. There may have been a redemption that we missed.
Okay, if you could check those out.
Yep. The big brown. Can you, I'm gonna hold 70, where is it at? I'm gonna hold 72.
Is there anything that we can clarify?
So just let it go with the 106? Okay, don't worry about it.
But you're going to give a revised because of some of the discrepancies, correct?
I will double check the information.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to hold 67.
Yeah, depending on what we get back,
67.
there may be a couple held in a second too.
Okay, I'm all set.
Thank you. The last one is, I have item number 76. It's confirmation of, from us, by the mayor's pick for the Director of Bureau Administration Adjudication, so. Any questions on that? Okay.
No, I'd just like to say, for those who didn't get a chance to meet with her, she's awesome. Seems really good.
Okay. Thank you. That concludes our study session for the day. Can I get a motion? Second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Right, but that's probably what